Hey everybody, welcome to Growing with Fishes podcast, episode 267. This week we have Greenz Goddess with us as our guest. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It really means a lot to be here. I'm just so thankful that you guys invited me on the show.
Super excited to have you. We also have Fumidor.
Cheers. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to be here. Hi, folks.
And
cheers, Greenz Goddess.
We also have Marty, if he's there.
Hey, Marty.
I think he might have stepped away for a second, but we also have Marty from APMeds. So yeah, thanks for joining us today. Today we have a super cool show for you guys. Also check out Joda Herb's show. I was just over on FCP2 with Joda Herb talking about seaweed and kelp. So definitely check that out as well. It was a fun talk a little bit earlier today. So yeah, Fumidor also has a great show. Fumidor, why don't you tell everybody how to find your show as well before we get started?
Over on my channel, Fumidor and the Flavors. I can honestly just put a link in the chat here. But yeah, we have a lot of great chats. We had a really fun talk yesterday with Clackamas Coot was on there. You were on there. A bunch of people were on there. Honestly, we were goofing off about all kinds of stuff. Actually, yesterday was Weed and Whiskey Wednesday, so we got a little bit crunked and the conversation got a little bit wild. But yeah, we have great chats over there. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Saturdays. Fumidor and the Flavors on YouTube. Thanks for the shout out. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And you can find this show live on Thursdays, Thursday evenings on your favorite podcast or on YouTube, and then also on your favorite podcast app, usually later that night or the next day, depending on when it finally clears. Because sometimes YouTube takes longer than others to prepare. So thanks a lot for joining us, Greenz Goddess. You also are with Luna Gardens as well. It was a little thanks a lot for joining us, and tell us a little bit about your farm and what you do. I know you're here to talk to us about terpenes and their health benefits as well, and a couple of other great topics tonight.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm one of the co-founders of lunagardens.co. It's our website. Basically, what we like to do is help share educational information about how cannabis medicine helps heal. It's our way of advocating. I know a lot of people are kind of starting to switch around and get into cannabis. CBD is always one way to get the conversation started and to get someone interested. But we want to let them know about the medicinal benefits of the whole entire plant and different ways that they could take it. It's something that they could educate themselves at home in their own discrete time. We also hand out like brochures, flyers. I got stickers that just kind of label the types of diseases that cannabis can help out with. I also do blogs, and today we're going to get into terpenes, which is going to be really fun because not a lot of people do shows exactly of all the benefits of terpenes, and obviously we can't get into all of them because there's way too much. So I think we're going to hit on the majority of the ones that you can find in most cannabis strains. So I'm really excited to talk about that. Let's see what's going on with my garden. Had it outdoors growing, but that's already came down. And so right now I'm turning a lot of that stuff into oil, which I'm really excited about because like cannabis infused oil is one of my favorite things to give out to patients. Oh, also we're caregivers. So we live in the state of Colorado and we're allowed to grow plants for some of our patients. So I make oils for a lot of them. I just finally got in a CBD oil, which I didn't know it was a CBD. I went and had it tested and it said mainly CBD. So I was really excited about that. We got a CBD oil. I usually stick with my 1-to-1 because out of all the research that I've done, I've noticed like a nice 1-to-1 oil with THC and CBD has a lot of great benefits for people. And we also have some really potent THC oils as well. And I've made other stuff, like I make brownies and things like that. Oh yeah, speaking of FCP, I have uploaded a few videos on there about how to make your own oil and butter and whatnot. And right now I'm doing indoors. So I've been doing living soil growing organics for a long time. And I did it in 10-gallon pots. And after so many runs, like they were going great for a while, but they're kind of not anymore. They're kind of being a bit of a hassle to water all the time and take care of and move them around from one room to another room, which is how I used to do it. But now I am putting more of my focus onto living soil beds. And I've made 3 beds. So I got 3 of those beds going right now indoors, and they're doing really great. And one thing that I like, I'm also on Instagram at Greenz Goddess. One thing I really like is when I can take some pictures and say, well, there's something going on with these plants. They're not looking right. And I don't know really what's in the soil. So I ask the community for help. And a lot of people, I kind of pick the answer that everybody mostly agrees on, because chances are it might be that thing. Sometimes you just got to solve your own problems and figure it out for yourself. But it's really, really nice to have a lot of friends in the organic growing community that could reach out and lend a few thoughts or ideas of what the problems could be. So that was one thing that I had noticed with one of my beds. Actually, can we get into pH really quick? Because one of the problems someone had mentioned, it might be really high pH. And even though I'm doing a living soil bed and I got worms in there and I'm using compost teas and humics, when I had decided to go ahead and measure the pH of my water coming out of the faucet and it's filtered through RO, it was really, 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 really high, like at a 9.8, 9.9. And that's city water. I live in the city of Denver. So would pH that extremely high be an issue in a living soil bed with worms, with compost teas, humic acids, whatnot? What do you guys think? How high is too high that you might want to lower that pH a bit?
I'd be really worried. Anything above 7 or 7.2.
Yeah, my thoughts.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think, for example, like the Coots mix and stuff, I think it could drift quite a bit. Like I've said this before, that I don't think the pH specifically is super important, but the stability maybe is a little bit more.
So I totally do Coots mix. That's what I use for my, I build my own soil with Coots mix. Yeah, for sure.
But ideally, you want to keep it in the mid 6s, be it soil or aquaponics. 6.4, 6.6, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I've been doing that for water. Then after a while, it kind of like leveled back down a bit. Talking to one of the friends had worked at a water treatment facility and said, of course, this time of year when all the trees are falling and it goes into the sewers and the drains, that it messes with the pH over the water treatment. So they will purposefully maybe raise it a lot or add something to raise the pH, because and debris and everything that had came down had maybe lowered it significantly or something, I don't know. But he was basically describing the change of seasons, maybe a reason why water coming out at a pH of 10. So that's just something to keep in mind.
What was your source water coming out at 10? Because drinkable water for municipalities is legally supposed to be no higher than 8.2.
Denver water, bro. I don't know.
Okay, so I'm actually familiar with this. So what happens is in the winter time and the summertime, they change reservoirs. They especially if there's a drought, they'll change where the water source comes from, and you can have a full point or more change in a couple of hours. I used to see this when I used to work with aquaponic facilities in Colorado, and it certainly is an issue, and why we always recommend people testing daily their tap water source and their aquaponic system at least once a day as part of their normal daily habits.
Good point. Yeah, I heard you talking about that on your past shows, how you used to live out here. How long have you lived out here for?
I moved to Colorado in 2010 or 2011, I forget which, and was out there until 2016, and then we bounced around California and Jamaica and Africa and Canada and everything else after that. So
nice. Right on. Yeah, I was out here at that time too then. I'm originally from California. I lived at a few states, landed in Colorado because I liked it the most. Awesome. So, any further ado, should we get into the terpenes?
Sure.
All right, so what I wanted to talk about for anyone paying attention when you're growing your own medicine, or if you're growing medicine for someone else, to considering which types of smells you typically go after might be the type of terpene that your body is really craving at the time. And if you're growing it for somebody else, you might want to understand what kind of issues they are having so that you could find the exact strains that they'll need. And you could use that to like make oils if you wanted to, or make anything else depending on what the customer preferred. It's just a really great idea to not only go after the types of cannabinoids that they need, but the terpenes too. And they all need to be combined together like a whole full plant extract, terpenes and cannabinoids, because they produce the entourage effect. Actually, some terpenes are really good at, they infiltrate the blood-brain barrier. So they really help deliver the cannabinoids to the brain a lot faster. Those terpenes are beta-carotene. No, they're not. Sorry, my bad. Not that one. It's myrcene, linalool, and bisabolol. I really haven't heard that one. I've just been reading it a lot lately because about the blood-brain interaction. So if someone's taking in whatever it is, CBD or THC, or any other kind of medicine, not even cannabis, it could be something else that you're taking. Things that are really high in myrcene, linalool, and I'm just gonna spell it for you guys. bisabolol. Bisabolol. Right, that sounds right. So anyways, those help with the uptake of things like cannabinoids and other stuff into the CB2 receptors. And your CB2 receptors are located in the brain, tissues, your organs, all the cells throughout your body, the immune system, the gastrointestinal system, and the peripheral nervous system. So those are some things to keep in mind. The linalool and the bisabolol are not that popular like myrcene. People love myrcene, and it's mainly found in in indica plants. And people would believe that indica is the thing that makes it sedative. It's really the terpenes that's in it. And most indica strains that can be sedative would be really high in sedative like terpenes like myrcene. So myrcene is found in hops and lemongrass and mangoes. So a lot of times for some people, you could eat a mango right before consuming cannabis, or maybe even your other pharmaceutical drugs you might be taking, and it'll help with the uptake. Myrcene is an antioxidant, a muscle relaxant, a potent pain reliever, and it enhances the effects of sedative drugs. This terpene is known for giving the couch lock effect. It's pretty, some people feel like they might be getting really, really, really high off of myrcene. It affects everybody differently. It also gives you anxiety relief. And like I said earlier, it increases the effects of cannabinoids. Linalool, not as popular. That you could find more in things like lavender. But anytime you see it in a strain, and even I was trying to look up strains that have linalool, it's usually like the second most potent terpene, or maybe the third most potent terpene in that strain. So linalool,
The other thing with linalool is really good if you're treating people with seizures that aren't responding to typical cannabis medicine. So if you're doing like a 4:1 CBD to THC ratio, or a 2:1 CBD to THC ratio, which is very normal for, it's a really typical mix for people that have seizures, adding 0.2% linalool to that total volume of cannabinoids can really amplify and kind of make it work a lot better, especially in patients that are kind of struggling and still not seeing the kind of results that they want with cannabis-based products.
Absolutely. Patients who are who have seizures might want to look for those types of strains. Or if you're growing for somebody who has seizures and you would like to make them that cannabis oil that they can take, like I had a patient and basically he was taking it twice a day. And any day he didn't take the oil, he definitely had a seizure that day. And it was hard for him if he felt like a seizure was coming on and he realized he forgot his morning dose and then he takes it. It was a bit too late almost in that sense. But I don't know if that works for everybody. And seeing as how taking the oil under the tongue, it takes a bit longer for it to kick in versus if you were to just take a hit off of a dab or something like that, that would kick in immediately. So that one definitely helps out with, it's like a neuroprotective too. It helps out with cancer, it's anti-anxiety, it's sedative, it relieves pain, and it's antimicrobial. So linalool is like a really great terpene. I wish that we could find more strains that have more of it in there. Actually, let me see if I could find some for anyone paying attention right now. Amnesia Haze, so these have a little bit of it in them. Amnesia Haze, LA Confidential, Bubba Kush, and well, there's lavender. But you can mainly find it in some of your indica plants. Let's see, up next. We have terpenoline. Terpenoline, I think, is found in the UK cheese, because I have a strain and it tasted a lot like cheese. So I looked it up to see what terpene that was that I was tasting, and UK cheese mainly has a lot of terpenoline, which I thought was neat. You could find that in allspice, tea tree, and juniper. Terpenoline is antibacterial and anti-tumor, and it also is associated with cognitive clarity, and that one's going to be highly stimulating and uplifting. And I've done a bunch of different research. One paper says terpenoline is highly stimulating and uplifting, and another research paper says terpenoline is relaxing and a sleep aid. So that can be a little bit confusing, but I think it all depends on the person, and maybe when they're taking it or how they're taking it will affect how that terpene is affecting their body at the time. Humulene, found in hops, clove, and ginger. Humulene has, it prevents allergic reaction, asthma, and allergic inflammation in the airways. And it shows a protective effect in some cells and may help guard against cancer. It's also very relaxing, and it supports your bones. Let's see if I could find humulene. Actually, I don't think I have it written in here. All right. I was trying to look up strains that also have, that are high. You know, like some of these terpenes, you could find strains that are really high in them, like myrcene, limonene, humulene. And a lot of these strains are just kind of like their second or their third, like they're not as potent as a main upfront terpene. And I think people might be breeding for that. So it would be really cool to get into strains that were higher in other terpenes, like linalool, for example. Moving on, ocimene. It's found in sweet basil, allspice, and it's antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal, antiseptic, and also a decongestant. It delivers a nice effect that's not too stimulating and not too sedating. So one of those right in the middle, which is pretty nice. Pinene, found in pine trees, rosemary, and basil. Pinene was interesting because you ever think about aromatherapy and you go hiking like in the woods? Did you ever go hiking when you were out here? Did you go hiking in Boulder or Golden or anything cool like that? Any 14ers?
Not only am I an experienced backcountry hiker, I used to lead foraging classes and teach people how to pick mushrooms and make herbal medicine up there. So if you ever have a question, I can probably answer it.
I do. Where'd you go to look for the shrooms? Like, did you go off in the forests? Because I went into, shoot, which national forest did I go into recently?
Probably Roosevelt.
Probably. If it wasn't Roosevelt, it was the one right next, not the Rocky Mountain National Park. Probably Roosevelt. So it was somewhere around Winter Park. You know that area?
Yep. Yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah. So, it's so like it rains a lot out there. It doesn't rain that much out here in the city.
So the trick with
out there, it's mushrooms everywhere.
The trick with mushroom hunting is you have to look at, you can pull up the weather where it's rained in the last 3 days and the last 5 days. And then you basically go there. And then you look at the temperature, and then the way to cheat, the cheat code for mushroom hunting is you get a digital meat thermometer and you stick it in the ground 2 to 3 inches below the surface, and you check the temperature, because most of the edible mushrooms, especially in Colorado, are hyperacute into specific temperatures. So morels, for instance, in black morels in Colorado queue in between, you'll start to see them around 46 degrees Fahrenheit. They'll really start popping off at 47, and you really don't see them anymore once the ground hits 50. So,
Yeah, it's really cold up there too. So, yeah. And I went during the summertime, and it was very, very chilly and raining. I was surprised. I tried going back actually. Oh shoot, when was it? October, when you want to go for that drive to see all the leaves changing colors. It's beautiful. Give me a break. I love it. And we were making our way back to Winter Park in October, and it was just pouring snow to the point I was like, this is stupid. We don't need to be out here. I don't want to be in the car in the hills, with the snow and ice. I'm good. Let's just turn around and go back.
I certainly, September, October, I used to go. That's when the OSHA root is much more concentrated in terms of the medicinal purposes. So we used to pick that and then sliver it or cut it up and then dry it. And it would make the whole house smell wonderful for like a month, and runs all the bugs out of your house too, because they hate the smell. It's
nice.
Really, there's a whole bunch of stuff I miss about living there.
Well, I mean, I think living anywhere kind of has its goods and its bads about it. Being out here, it's great because I could grow weed, but not a lot of people are like trying to buy it. Because it's Colorado, they could buy it from anywhere. So to tell someone, yeah, I need you to go to a doctor and pay money and get your 6 plant count, and then I need you to go online and give me your 6 plant count. It's a lot for someone who's like not really that interested if they could just go and buy it at any store. So like if you're living somewhere else where I guess there weren't a shit ton of dispensaries. Well, what's it like out in Oklahoma?
Oklahoma, there's a dispensary every mile when you go down the road.
Yeah.
There's more dispensaries. Okay, there's more cannabis. So Oklahoma has a total of about 9,000 cannabis licenses between processing, dispensaries, and cultivation. Or I think it's more than that now. It's 7,000 cultivation licenses, over 3,000 processors, and I don't even remember how many dispos. It's like 4,000 or 5,000 dispos. I'm sure someone can find it on Twitter or something like that. Yeah, Fumi's got it, or APMeds. Marty,
my computer's still freaking out right at the moment, so.
No worries.
That's a lot. Do they have a small population? I mean, that's a lot of dispensaries.
Well, there's more cannabis licenses in Oklahoma than Oregon, Washington, and California combined.
And California.
Yep.
Because don't they have a shitload too?
No, because they restricted it. So Oklahoma was a little too lax, but
yeah, they're very wild out there, huh? The Wild West.
Go ahead, Marty. Sorry about that.
Oh no, that's fine. I was just saying, yeah, I mean, I think Californians wish they had a ton of licenses like they do in Oklahoma, but they're much more limited. Pretty hard to get one in California still, from what I understand. I mean, I'm in Southern Oregon, and it's kind of the same boat now. You have to buy one. But for a while, they tried to give one to everybody for up until maybe, what was it, like 3 or 4 years ago? I think they finally got so far behind, they just gave up on giving any more out. And now you have to buy them from someone else if you want one. And then it's kind of weird because you just go through the same process anyway. So you still have to go and get everything re-inspected, and like any change of ownership, you basically go through the entire certification process again. So it's kind of, I don't know, seems like a racket to me, but hey, what do I know?
It's super expensive out here to get a license to do like medical or recreational marijuana, just to get the license, let alone that you're what do they call it, a lottery. So you got to set up a place, and you got to set up all these ideas and start your planning and say exactly what you want to do and how much it's going to cost you. And hopefully you could win that lottery. And maybe you don't win the lottery, but you already put a whole lot of money into this deposit trying to get this place. I mean, it sucks. As a caregiver that I know of at the moment, I'm allowed to grow up to 99 plants. So the way that I see it, as long as that stays that way and it doesn't change, then that's all that I really want to do, is just be a caregiver, find patients and grow their medicine. working in the industry lately, like I was telling you guys earlier, it's very overwhelming. It's too much. It reminds me of like farming, like out in the ocean or like in the lakes. You got your happy fish, but then you got these small little swimming holes where they're farming fish, and those are not happy fish because they're too stuck together and too close, and they get sick and they're sharing diseases and whatnot. Or like when you're farming, you got happy cows. Or when you go to a place like, well, I don't know what Oklahoma is like, but I've gone through Texas. And then you've got those places that are just packed full of cows pooping on each other, pissing each other off because they don't got their space, and maybe they're hungry and they're eating shitty food. Like, they are not fucking happy cows. And then I'm looking at these plants like, they're beautiful and it's gorgeous and I love my job. Don't get me wrong. But I look at it like, this is not what nature intended. We're inside in a building, cemented windows, you know what I'm talking about, electricity up the ass, and the roof is getting redone right now, which causes so many problems on the plants. But it's like, I cannot wait till I get to just not have to do that anymore. And it's just me and my greenhouse. So I'm really looking forward to that. And right now I'm just trying to save up some money for that. So
yeah, I wish you could still do that in Oregon. You know, like you used to be able to be a caregiver. You still can, but we're limited to 48 plants instead of 99. So that, you know, right there is kind of difficult. And then on top of that, enrollment in medical is down so much that like it's almost, you know, pretty sure they're just trying to kill it at this point. And that there's only like maybe
to do out here.
2 medical dispensaries for the whole state or something like that, maybe 1 now. I don't know. It's pretty rough out there for the medical market. So I don't think it's going to stay that way very long, but you can still get, I think 8 patients at 6 plants each. So 48 total is what you can do out here. But again, kind of like you were saying, for actual production is pretty rough. You know, like there's just a huge flooded market right now. People are pretty stressed.
Yeah, absolutely. And those plants are really like pushed fast. And they don't even use fish fertilizer there. Like, I want to say something, but they don't listen to nothing I say anyways. I should be like, hey, have y'all tried the fish fertilizer?
Colorado still have the 450 count R&D licenses. They used to have testing and R&D licenses, experimental licenses. I don't know if that still exists or not as a program.
Oh, I don't know.
I used to work with a group in Gilchrist, Colorado, and we used to grow a bunch of different cultivars for kiddos. And that was a program that was a license that we had up for it.
What did the program pay for your license, or did you guys or whoever was doing it?
No, we still did it, but it allowed us to grow. We were growing at the beginning. We had a hemp license as well, so we had 4 acres of hemp and then a whole patch of weed, and you know, it was nice. We were able to grow a huge scale right off the bat, which gave me a lot of experience early on.
Yeah, the hemp license is totally different. With hemp, it's like, it's not that expensive. You could like get a hemp license and pick out like a corner if you had like a field or some acres you were growing in and saying, this is hemp. I imagine it has to be far away from the city of Denver, because anything near the city or the metro area of Denver, it has to be in a building, closed windows, locked doors, you know, no sunlight. I mean, doesn't make sense.
This was a THC license for 450.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Again, I don't even know if they still have that program anymore, but they used to.
Yeah, that sounds like something I might want to get into.
This was like 2012 or 2013. This was quite a while ago. Also, we didn't mention
so much.
We didn't mention this on my show last week, but I wanted to because I missed it by a day, because Friday was 10 years for my dreadlocks. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Woohoo! How long are they? Do they touch your butt?
They're past my butt, actually. They're working.
My hair ain't been that long, Steve. No, almost. What do you feed your dreadlocks to get them to grow so long?
Wash them with the lavender oil and tea tree oil. Keeps them from breaking. Keeps them from getting funky.
The tea tree oil, yeah, probably, because it's antibacterial and whatnot.
One thing I did want to.
Nice.
One thing I did want to mention, she's talking about terpenes and all these other things. It's why it's really important for you to understand the chemovar profile and the high terpene values that are in the plants that you buy and the flower that you buy or the products that you buy, because they might not have that strain next week. But if you have a good understanding of the chemovar profile that you're looking for, the different balance of the terpenes, or hey, to me, high banana terps just gets me high as shit. There was a strain that was like 14 or 16% at Emerald Cup one year that was heavy in banana terps, and I was high as fuck off of just a joint, and I could do dabs and stuff, and it doesn't hit me anywhere near as hard. There's certain things that are really, really going to ring your bell if they if they do, and finding those out and finding out what works good for you and your ailments really is super important for making sure that you can go to any dispensary and find something that'll work for you, rather than just being like, oh man, I gotta have this strain, or like I'm gonna die. It's not like that. You just, and this is one of the things that pisses me off about everyone overemphasizing hype strains versus understanding the chemovar profiles. There might be a strain that Fumidor has that has an even better profile than the stuff that you can get at your dispensary, and you don't even realize it because you're so stuck on a name. You're not looking at the results from those. So it's definitely why it's important not to necessarily chase a strain to death when you can. Once you understand what that profile is like, you can find something that might even be better for you.
The combination of terpenes that are in there, because one's always going to be the most significant, and then you have your terpene that's second in place, maybe another one that's third in place, maybe more but there's such small, tiny significant amounts. If you realize what your biggest problem is, and I always like to take people a step back and say, okay, what smell do you typically go after? And then they'll tell me the smell that they typically go after. It doesn't really matter. Maybe they like a top 2 or 3 strains, but they like to stick to these strains because they have this particular smell. Then I go back and show them like my terpene flower. I made a terpene flower. I go back and I go over it and I say, well, this is the smell that you enjoy smelling, and these are what it's good for. And then they're like, oh, no wonder why, because I totally have that problem. So no wonder why I like these strains. And I was just thinking earlier why girls like such fruity strains. It's because fruity strains are the ones that's going to make you feel good, happy, enjoying, relaxed, stress-free, no anxiety. And that might be an issue with most women. And it's an antidepressant, which is really important. Because a lot of times your brain can kind of race sometimes a little too much, and you take a little weed and you're like much more relaxed, more down to earth, more chill. And you're like, oh man, things aren't that bad. Maybe I complain a little bit too much. Maybe I worry a little bit too much. Maybe I think too much of the past, and I need to get over it and forgive and move on. Smoking this specific type of herb is what makes you feel good. And like, Fumi, weren't you talking on one of the other shows? I'm not sure if it was you. I listen in on my podcast, so I'm not sure who's talking. Were you talking that you liked particular strains because they were pain relievers?
Generally, I don't know if it was specifically me. Ozzy probably talked about that, but I definitely have some back pain issues for sure. So anytime I do have like an uplifting or whatever strain, it still has to be kind of an effective weed, because otherwise, I might have a bad back day or whatever else. You know what I mean? We're all getting older, right? So like we basically accumulate fucking problems. It's ridiculous, right? Like an old car or something. How do I put it? You want the old car to be amazing, but it sometimes breaks down. So basically, that's like the rest of us. I need some CBD and some other stuff basically in the weed. So yeah, it always has to have a little bit of oomph to it. That might have been me that was talking about it. Yeah, straight up.
Yeah, I totally ever since working lately, definitely been hurting a lot more, because there's a lot of like reaching over and things like that. I have to do a lot of reaching. And so, I try to keep my posture straight, but when you wake up the next morning, like trying to get ready for work and your back still hurts or your feet still hurt, you're like, man, I don't want to say I'm getting old because I'm still young, whatever, but it's like, it fucking hurts, man. My body hurts. I do like a bath with CBD bath bombs, or even some oil, CBD and THC oil, and you mix it in your bath water, you just soak. That's really, 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 really good for your body. Where did I leave off, you guys? Was I talking about osamine?
Osamine, no. You haven't talked about that.
Osamine?
Yep.
Yeah. Ocimene is it's found in sweet basil, allspice. It's sweet and it's fruity. It's antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal, antiseptic, and a decongestant. So this one would be really good, especially this time of year when a lot of people are getting sick. And you want to take something in that's like going to help keep away the viruses and the bacteria. I got a few more. Pinene, it's found in pine trees, rosemary, and basil. Oh, did I tell you guys about this one? Yeah, pinene, like walking through the forest. That's where we left off because then we got into the forest talk. Dude, I would love it if you could send me a picture of those mushrooms because, yeah, I would definitely like to go for a walk and pick some mushrooms. I always wanted to like take a class like that because I like hiking. I usually go up in Boulder or Golden. And we did go hiking up in the Roosevelt. That was really awesome and very beautiful. And I enjoy it very much. And we ran to a couple that was picking some wild berries and said we could eat them, but they were gross. I don't know, they were super bitter. They were disgusting.
Were they on the ground and red?
Yes.
Yeah, so those are kinnikinnick berries. They're very high in vitamin B. They're really good to know if you're hiking and get lost in the wintertime because they produce those in the fall and they'll get preserved under the snow. So unless it's like frozen down, it's kind of an emergency food that you can almost always find up there if you're really stuck.
That's really interesting. That's cool. Man, you know a lot of cool stuff about hiking. I wish you would come back to Colorado and we could go do a class or something. But yeah, even just being out in the forest and smelling pines, it's very aromatherapeutic. It inhibits enzyme activity in the brain and aids in short-term memory for some people, especially those who are like maybe getting older, or maybe someone who had a traumatic brain injury or something like that. They would do really well having something with pinene. It's uplifting, it's antidepressant, it's antibiotic, anti-inflammatory, and anti-tumor. And taken lightly, it could act as a bronchodilator. So using it for a bronchodilator, some people may not want to take too hard of a hit. Another thing on a study that I was reading said people who might be inhaling pinene might take an even bigger hit because it's a bronchodilator.
And if you're looking for the pinene strains, the highest pinene I've ever had was off of stuff from Zimbabwe. In fact, I have some seeds from it. The stuff that comes from Mozambique and Zimbabwe and you know northern, well, I guess it would be extreme eastern and northeastern South Africa is really, really high in pinene. Just
nice.
It seems like the pinene heavy strains always have a longer flowering time. I don't know if that's the genetics or if it has something to do with how their production, but I've never had them be the really fast finishers. I'm sure they exist, but it generally is a rarer trait in the fast finishers.
Would they grow like a sativa, like they grow really tall?
Yep.
Yeah, interesting because even on like the list of benefits says it's uplifting. So it makes a lot of sense to me that sativa strains have certain terpenes in them. So some of those sativa strains, they take like up until when, until they're ready? Like, are you talking outdoors or indoors when you grew it?
This was all out. I mean, everything in Africa, basically, just about it.
Oh, right, I'm sure. They're not anything like us. We need our cement buildings.
The whole year and a half I was in Jamaica bouncing around grows. I saw indoor grows twice, and both times they were nurseries.
Oh, man. So then when does it harvest if it's outdoors? That's not until like September?
No, so it works differently when you're at the
November,
equator.
December?
So when we're in equatorial strains, it's always 12-12 or something close to it's 12 and a half to 11 and a half hours. You know, it doesn't vary that much if it does vary. So that's where you really have a different expression. You can plant stuff from seed and it'll almost always be 4 or 5 feet tall at harvest. I got video, you can check out my YouTube channel. I have videos of me walking around fields in Jamaica. that are that size. So, but it's a different way to grow. And what's nice is you can have your moms in a different light, or have just a the power on in a greenhouse for 2 to 4 hours just to keep those plants in the vegetative state, clone them out, and just put those clones in the field and let them finish off. You know what I mean? It's really nice. You don't really have to light depth them at all. You just they naturally do it as soon as you put them outside. So it makes certain things easier and certain things harder.
There's a gentleman that I follow on Instagram, and he goes by the name of Green Hills Farm 99, I think. And he's growing in South Africa. So when it's my winter and I can't be outside and I'm all sad about it, he's always out there showing off his garden. And he did these videos where he was showing what he's putting in the reservoir feed day. He's like got all these jars set up, and he does like KNF and organic stuff too. He's a really cool guy. It's just fun to watch when I'm like kind of in my hibernation over here. I get to watch him enjoying his, and when he's in his hibernation over there, like he can't be growing outside, then I'm showing off mine. He's like, oh yay, I can't wait. So it's always fun to go back and forth and see that. Aren't you moving did I hear that you were moving back out there to South Africa?
I was supposed to be there right now, but I think it's going to be after April before I get back there, probably May or June before I can get out there again, just because of the virus and then everything else going on. And then once January through April, I'm committed to the Regen conference and some other things that I'm doing around the country. So, I wouldn't be until May that I go. So.
Oh, thanks for bringing that up, because I'm actually going to get tickets to the regenerative conference. The Regenerative Cannabis Cultivation Conference, right? And when they go to Oklahoma in April, right? So last weekend of April, they're going to be in Oklahoma. Are you going to be out there then?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, cool. Well, then we'll get a chance to meet each other in person.
I'm a speaker at all the different conferences, and I was just trying to pull up the website here for everybody.
Yeah, please get your tickets, you guys. I'm going to be at the one in Oklahoma. It's the closest one to where I am, and that I know of. They don't have the place set up yet, but I'm sure they'll find something awesome soon. And I'm just really looking forward to it. I feel like it's going to be like a really magical experience. It's going to be awesome to just be able to sit down and chat. I meet a lot of people that I've seen like only through YouTube the past year and a half. So I'm definitely going to be going to that. I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully you could point me in the direction of some good hotels or something like that nearby where everybody else will be hanging out at.
Which one are you going to?
The one in Oklahoma.
Okay, yeah, we haven't booked that one up yet that I'm aware of, unless Josh has. I've been helping him with some of that stuff. There we go. If you're wondering what the dates are, Humboldt's January 28th through 30th. If you're going to do that, usually we stay at the Benbow Inn if you're wanting to hang out with the speakers. And then Michigan, I don't know where we're staying there. And then in Maine was really fun last time, and super cool to see the East Coast, doing some crazy stuff. Definitely some interesting genetics that are different than the West Coast for sure. And then Oklahoma for the first time this year. Or next year rather, will be a lot of fun. So super stoked about that.
Me too. I'm really excited about it. Totally looking forward to it.
And if you're going, make sure you stay for Sunday, because Sunday is the seed swap. And
I also wanted to ask about that. I do have a lot of seeds. So how does that work? How should I prepare for a seed swap?
It's kind of like take a penny, leave a penny. So I usually bring I have golden tobacco and shaman's tobacco, so I usually bring one of those, and then I also will bring some different cannabis cultivars, and then usually my buddy Mr. Green's garden, he'll send me some stuff to give out to people as well.
So you make a bunch of tiny little packs, like 5 or 10 seeds or something like that in each pack, and then when you meet somebody, you give them a pack and they give you a pack?
That, or usually what I'll do is I'll just bring big bags of seeds and Ziplocs and a Sharpie, and if only 3 people want one strain, I'll just split it between the 3 of them. I don't care. Like, I try to be fair so that everyone kind of gets the same amount or whatever.
Okay.
Hey, too many people want it, everyone gets four seeds or 6 seeds instead of 10, like
Right.
whatever.
Is it like Halloween candy though? What if you give out too much at first because you think not that many trick-or-treaters are going to show up, but the next thing you know, you run out of candy and there's a whole crowd coming your way and you're like, shit.
Well, usually it's, anyways, I don't want to get into this. Usually it's pretty, everyone kind of gets into one area of the conference and breaks out what they have. It's, you'll know right away.
Okay. Well, I'll be there with my seats for sure.
But I certainly picked up some stuff to fill some gaps in my breeding projects that I'd like to eventually get time to do, and some other stuff. So certainly is a great place to get access to a lot of stuff that especially if you're really trying to find a specific cut for breeding purposes, it's going to be one of the best places to network and find those. And, just trade for stuff that you have. You not necessarily have to spend, a ton of money on that, depending on what you're doing.
That's super cool. I'm not like really into breeding, but just for fun, I tried it this one time and I did what did I get? Phoenix Fire from Soulfire Genetics. I had his plants in a room. They were all females, and then one male Rona, because I really, really, really liked Rona. It was a strain that I got from a friend. I don't even really know what's in it, but it definitely tastes like limonene. And that's why I love it so much, as you can tell. And I didn't want to let it go. It was the last plant. It was a male. I'm thinking, damn it. Because me personally, I don't like males in my garden, that cause issues. And the next thing you know, the whole garden gets seeded. So I was extremely careful. I left the male in there. It seeded the other plants. So I got a huge jar full of seeds, and they're all regular seeds. So it's kind of hard to tell if they're male or female. And I wouldn't say that they're super huge, and I'm not going to say that I was breeding it on purpose, because it's the best of the best. And I've been doing searches for so long. That's why I say I'm not a breeder. I just did it for fun. But I got hardly any flower buds off of that one. It was mainly seeds, and with what little flower product and terpenes I did collect, I just ended up turning that into some oil. So I guess it worked out, but I'm really excited. And I passed those seeds out. Some people are already growing that next strain. So it's pretty cool. Well, speaking of limonene, I'll just move on there next, because I don't know where the Rona came from. I believe one of its parents was a train wreck somewhere, and I don't remember what my friend told me the rest of it was. But definitely high in limonene, which is why I loved it so much. Limonene is found in citrus fruits like lemons. Ooh, there's another thing I wanted to get into with you. I wonder if you might know a lot about it. Limonene is associated with euphoric effects and relieves stress. It is antidepressant, anti-inflammatory, anti-tumor, helps with the uptake of anti-migraine medicine. So if you're taking medicine for migraines, having something like citrus fruits or having, your weed that's high in limonene would be able to help out with that.
The downside of limonene is also usually the thing that makes people paranoid. I know if I have super high limonene strains, it's uncomfortable,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Not chill.
And I wonder oftentimes, okay, so talking about back to the industry, and when you're buying things at the store, a lot of times they harvest plants on a date. So it doesn't necessarily always matter if the plant itself is ready or not. And I wonder if that has a major effect when people are taking that plant and the trichomes aren't fully developed just yet, that maybe they're expressing more of this uplifting effect on people. And another person has suggested, if you take something like that and it's going to give you a heart beating out of your chest and racy thoughts, it might be best to go and utilize all that energy. Like in the morning, I enjoy smoking it on my way to work, and my heart definitely gets racy. My thoughts definitely get racy. I'm freaking out about the time. Am I going to be late? I'm freaking out about traffic. If I was at home and I take it and I utilize that energy, like cleaning the house or doing some garden chores, I just put on my music, get my work done really fast and have a good time. But that's definitely not something I could be taking at night when I'm trying to go to bed. It activates the adenosine receptors and it increases the effects of THC and CBD. So when citrus fruits like lemons, so this one I read a paper on was really good for like breast cancer. And there is this thing, and I forgot what it's called, but it describes food and the thing that it helps heal. So if you cut a citrus in half, and you look at it, it kind of looks like the muscle tissue of a woman's breast. And there's other things like walnuts. If you cut a walnut in half, it looks like a brain. Walnut's very good for your brain. Or a carrot, if you cut a carrot in half, it looks like your eyes, and carrots are really good for your eyes. I forgot what that's called. Do you know what I'm talking about, Fumi? There's a thing, I forgot what it was called. Eye of something, I don't remember.
I can't remember the name of the word. I know what you're talking about, where life mimics itself. I can't think of it. Yeah, it's not I can't think of it. Somebody in the chat might know what we're talking about. I'm kind of under the weather, so my brain's like half a beat behind, but I know what you're talking about.
I know, me too. Otherwise, I would be up with it. But
right?
It was some medical paper that I was reading because it was talking about the benefits of food, not just nutrition, but specifically things that each food has and how it can help certain parts of your body or your organs or your brain or even your skin. So I thought that was really cool, especially when I had read that paper talking about limonene being great for specifically breast cancer. And, obviously it's in citrus fruits like lemons and stuff like that. So things like lemons and grapefruit are really great for breast cancer as well. So the last one I have for you guys, I have beta-carotene found in black pepper, cloves. It's an antidepressant and it functions as a cannabinoid and activates the CB2 receptors. So remember CB2 receptors, they're in your brain tissues, organs, cells, the immune system, the gastrointestinal system, and the peripheral nervous system. Beta-carotene is a strong anti-inflammatory. It also relieves pain and it enhances the immune system. So something like that would be really great to take in right now, especially since we have viruses everybody's worried about. And if you want to improve your own immune system, there's several different ways that you could do that naturally through food. Black pepper, cloves. You could take either one of those, add it to like soups or salads or chili or your sandwich or whatever. Or you could look for some cannabis if you like that's high in beta-carotene. And it's also useful for arthritis and it treats chronic pain. So if anyone has chronic pain issues, or if you're making a skin cream, you could use it. So people, when they use it on their skin to get rid of pain, it would really help out a lot.
Also, smell different cannabis strains. If something smells funky and not moldy, especially different, try it. It's when I go to a dispensary, the first thing I do, if they're like, let me smell their weed, I look for something that smells really different, something that smells earthy, something that smells strange, because it's going to have a different effect on me than I've had before, right? It's going to hit me in a different way. It's certainly what I always seek out when I'm, in a dispensary for the first time and don't know them.
It's always fun getting into some new stuff and trying new things and new flavors and just to see how it affects you, like saying, yeah, I like this and I know it works, but I've never tried that before. So I think that that's really awesome to get into that, especially the funky smells. Do you like cheese?
Oh, I love cheese strains. A really, really good cheese strain that we back crossed with G13. That was really good, a really good solid producer, and just a super funky smell that like I haven't really had before. Had the cheese, then also kind of had a bit of the gassiness from the G13 and the hash plant, and then that thicker earthiness from the hash plant as well. So it had that like just a really unique kind of profile to it.
Sounds like it tastes like those mushrooms you were talking about earlier. Some funky, earthy, smelly green shit.
Oh yeah. Funny story about the mushrooms in Colorado. So traditionally they teach people in Colorado that ruchulas, the red ones, make people sick, right?
Oh, because that's what I saw everywhere. Are they called, the toadstool ones?
Well, the ones that people call toadstools usually are the Amanita muscarias, which are the polka dotted ones, which are like your reindeer ones.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
But there was these, traditionally rucolas are taught that you don't eat them, right? But I was hiking one day and it was a bit rainy that day, and I run into these two old Russian or Bulgarian or Ukrainian or Eastern European ladies. And I stopped them and I was like, hey, like those are poison, because I had a big basket of mushrooms. They had a big basket of mushrooms. And they just laughed at me and were like, no, you're just being silly. And they take a bite out of it and then taste it and spit it out. And then she walks over on the ground and she picks up a different one called the sickener. That's a red one. It looks almost identical to the wine caps, the wine cap rucolas that you can pick up there. So she had me taste both of them and just chew up a little bit of it and spit it out. And there's no mushroom in the United States that's going to harm you by chewing it out and chewing it up and spitting it out, as long as you don't swallow it. But just chewing it, the poison one tastes peppery and the good one doesn't taste peppery. So it's a way, at least for rucolas, you can tell the good ones from the bad ones is taking a little bit of a bite from it and, just tasting it.
Very interesting.
Yeah. There's all different types of ways to identify plants and mushrooms and things. It's always something that's super interesting to me.
Is there like a book out on that where I could just like maybe check out a website or go get a book that will describe all the different mushrooms I might see specifically in my area?
Yeah, so for Colorado, you have the Mycological Society, mycoweb.org, I think is their website.
Mycoweb.org?
Mycoweb.org. And they have guided forays and stuff with experts, and you can go out there and make sure that you have someone watching over your shoulder and kind of teaching you the different areas. And what you'll notice is you're looking for the microclimates, the area where the water kind of lays under the ground and divots and things like that, or where it's going to flow over a rock area into another soil patch. That's where you tend to have the bigger blooms. And just getting into areas away from where everyone's hiking on a regular basis, because if it's high traffic, people are going to pick it before you get there.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, you have to get a license.
Along the trail, it was offside of the trail.
So in Colorado, it's 10 or 20 pounds per day that you can pick for personal use. Anything above that, you do need a license, it's like $5 or whatever. It's not even much. You just have to register with the Forest Service. They're super chill about it. They're not really, a pain in the butt about it, but as long as you have it in your wallet, they're cool. And then you can pick, however many pounds you're going to pick for the year. You report that, if you decide to do that. Oh yeah, Fumi's saying he thinks it's 50 pounds. No, so yeah, it just depends on your local state. Again, the likelihood of you getting in trouble for it, unless you're, really being a dickhead, is pretty low. It's mostly to prevent people. Once in a while I'd see people. I know my buddy of mine allegedly slashed the tires of a bus full of some groups of Asian immigrants that go up there and just strip mine the place and resell it and online, and if you see them, make sure that they stay there long enough for the ranger to get there.
That's crazy.
Oh yeah,
so but they live in that area and they go there often.
Yeah, well, the general rule of thumb is you want to leave about a third of what you find behind, at least, so that the spores drop, so that's there for next year. But what's cool is if you do that, or you find some old mushrooms and you sprinkle them around, you can kind of work an area of forest over a couple of years and really improve the production of it, as long as you're smart about it. It's also why you want to use a more open basket than a closed basket, because you're going to drop the spores as you're bopping along and walking and bouncing that basket along. You're basically just seeding spores everywhere. So if you have a basket that allows some of them to fall out, that's even better than having one that's just like a plastic bag,
Oh, so like they're similar like potatoes, where you could just like kind of cut them up and leave a few behind, and then they'll just kind of grow new ones?
The spores drop out of the gills under the underside of the cap.
You don't have to cut anything up. You just pluck them, throw them in your basket, as long as your basket got holes. Okay, cool.
Yep.
That's good to know. That's probably why they keep popping up along the trail side. You think the majority of them are there until enough people go through and gather them all. Then you'll see them off to the sides.
The best book that I've found on it is a book, and I don't even think it's in publication anymore, so you have to kind of hunt them down a little bit. It's a book called Everything the Rain Promises and More. and it has a guy like on mushrooms playing a trumpet in a tuxedo on the cover. It's a good book.
Sounds like a hot date. That's awesome. I'm gonna have to look that
There
up.
it is. I found that here. And 2 seconds. Here it is. Oh, let me get a better. There we go.
Fumidor, you want to tell me what was the skunkiest, funkiest strain you've ever smoked in your entire life? Funky, the funkier the better. Oh, the rainbow is using more. Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Better.
I told you.
Hip pocket got to some Western mushrooms. Awesome.
You know, I had some good. Well, that's not the funkiest. I don't know. Like, I had the GMO a couple times. That was, a lot of people call that quite funky. I guess that's not really that crazy. But then I had the Donnie burger, and what's the other burger? I can't even remember. But actually, a friend of mine brought Dog Walker one time. One of the cuts, I want to say, popped it from seed. Honest, it's a local breeder bred it, and I want to say that this was from a pack of seeds. They popped a few different Dog Walkers, and it was a delightfully stinky, gassy plant. Actually, really, really strong. He made some rosin from it. One of the only plants, like when I would hit the dab, I'd get the effect where like my eyes would close kind of involuntarily. So that's when you know it's really freaking strong. And that was pretty funky. I remember. That's not my absolute favorite. I've said that before. It's not my absolute favorite freaking direction for weed or whatever. But it's how I put it. Like, dude, it's important. I like it too. Like the GMO, I really like that garlic and that kind of funkiness. I actually kind of think it's like more Chinese onions, but anyway, that oniony whatever, that goodness, you know. Yeah, I'm not super into like feet. You know, Wes Engine, if he's watching right, I don't think he's watching it right now, but he's super into like feet and whatever else.
Feet
I don't know, man.
That's funky.
No. Right? Or have you heard halitosis? I'm like, no,
Heard
man.
of it,
First thing in the morning, I got to brush
it.
my teeth. I can't even stand my own halitosis. Like, no thanks. Smoking that? I don't know. People are weird. You made a good point though earlier with I mean, how do I put this? I don't want to be a reductionist and say, oh, okay, only women smoke fruity strains or something. But it's a good point that people will have different requests, also both men and women, but also old people, young people, middle-aged people, athletic, not athletic. Everybody's going to have slightly different needs for cannabis in the future. But I kind of don't imagine that there's going to be a huge market for super stinky feet halitosis among the female cannabis community. You know what I mean? Like, it just strikes me as not likely. You know what I mean? You know, but I would see like
what she's into, man.
I guess, man. I don't know. But, you know what I mean? So I think that just even based on that, there's a call for strawberries and lemons and watermelons and peaches.
Most chicks that I meet are like that. Most of them.
Right.
But
I was over it, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in the show. I was at the Cowboy Cup this past weekend.
Oh yeah.
And one of the people walked up with a strain, handed it to dude, and he's like, "It's the vomit strain," and it straight smelled like vomit and like cheese. It was the weirdest terp profile. Although, I'm sorry, I didn't mute that in time. The strangest terpene profile is to date, and I have a plant of it now, is this particular cut of Oreo from a friend of mine, and it smells like DMT. The plant smells like DMT, like burnt plastic. Like that you just set on fire.
That is. Oh, I wonder.
And then when you press the rosin, it really smells like DMT. It smells like you just made a fresh batch. Allegedly, smells like. And then when you press it and smoke it, it tastes like chocolate. It is the flavors don't match the smell. It's very bizarre.
Well, certain terpenes, you know, burn off at like certain temperatures. So that's very odd, you know, that it tastes or smells like super gross, but then when you go to smoke it, it's not so bad. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, no, the flavor is very pleasant. It's very, very good tasting. It's just, it smells like it wouldn't be very good tasting. I'll put it that way.
I was trying to see if I could find a thing that talked about DMT. If it has a terpene, which terpene is it? Like, what is that smell?
No, it doesn't have any terpenes in it. It's other compounds, but yeah, I I don't want to get into that particular compound too much without YouTube already giving me enough shit. So but,
some things we won't discuss.
yeah,
I
we've
have some
had
questions, Steve. These are my 2 questions. Tell me.
I was just gonna say, oh, what's
Fish fertilizer by Alaska. What do you think about that? If you're not doing aquaponics and you don't have your own fish tank, what if you use just regular fish fertilizer or organic Neptune's Harvest fish and seaweed fertilizer? What are your thoughts on either one of these?
well, the problem with both of those are
Okay.
well, particularly the Neptune is it uses liquid kelp extract, which can get you into trouble pretty quickly in terms of heavy metals. In particular, arsenic is the thing if you
Yes.
dose with it too much. But the issue with both of those products is they're byproducts from the saltwater fishing industry. So you can end up
We were
with
just talking about too much fish in one tiny little area getting each other sick. Is that what? Okay.
well, it's just that you can end up with nutrient heavy metal issues that are not normal for other fish inputs. If you can get freshwater fish, they tend to have much fewer issues as far as potential heavy metal contamination with things like FFA or fish emulsion, things like that. The saltwater ones really, while they do have a lot of micro minerals and trace elements and other things, absolutely you're going to have a lot more heavy metals as well. So it can get you into trouble because they use this, not the best quality feed for those, and they often just take ground up, basically take the meat scraps and grind them up and put them back into the meal that is then put into a pelletizer, and then that's dried and baked to make those pellets, and then they feed them back to the fish. So it's not a very good practice.
That's gross.
Yeah, or it's stuff from wild caught stuff that is eating stuff that's the highest part of the food chain, so it's going to have higher chances of lead and mercury and arsenic just because it's eating fish that consume kelp and other macroalgae and microalgae or filter feeders that are bioaccumulating that over time.
Okay.
You don't have that issue in freshwater because they don't have that type of life cycle.
That's always been like a dream of mine to get this dope ass piece of property with a river running through it where I could like just grab that water and use it or go swimming in there if I wanted to. I mean, I've thought a lot about aquaponics and it always seems like something you've got to take care of. But when you're out by the river, you don't really have to necessarily take care of the river other than, keeping it fresh and going and keeping it clean and whatnot. You don't got to take care of those fish, or you don't got to worry about having to sell those fish if you're too big or something.
The problems you have with that is that if somebody dumps something up the river, or say a tanker crashes or a boat crashes, or I don't know, any number of bad things happen, or sewer line breaks or something, then you're completely screwed. You absolutely can take water from natural sources like that, but you have to remember is that you have no ability to concentrate the nutrients. The reason why aquaponics works is we can remineralize that waste and then concentrate it into a high enough level that supports the plant life. Whereas in a river, it's diluted down because there's a lot more water than the nutrient concentration is going to be able to handle for the plant. So that's why like most aquatic plants, their required nutrients are like, a quarter or less of what a terrestrial plant is in terms of sustaining growth. Potassium for most aquatic plants they want it between 10 and 20 parts per million. Terrestrial plants want it, 75 to 125. They want it much higher. So just as one example. This is the type of stuff where the chemistry is a lot different, but freshwater plants, the way that you would use kelp, if you can dry them up and grind them up, actually are really good because they have a lot more enzymes and things that work much better with terrestrial systems because it's freshwater and they don't have that sodium component that's critical for a lot of those microbes to stay alive.
Interesting. So then, if I wasn't able to get a piece of property with a river running through it, the other idea was to have a living swimming pool. And I've asked this a lot in chat. during that online aquaponics conference that you did a few weekends ago. That was really awesome. I personally want to thank you so much for putting that together. You and Marty, he was on there too. But it was just such a fun show to be a part of. I totally binged all weekend long. Like I didn't go anywhere or do anything but aquaponics, and I come back to work like fish poop, everybody.
Yeah,
So
Fumi was there too, helping us run the whole show. So it's shout out
thank
to
you,
both of them.
Fumi. He was also in chat cracking me up. I remember that.
Okay, cheers. My pleasure.
But yeah, thanks a lot, and it's a lot of fun. I think it really helps people, realize how, it's not just a couple of random people tinkering with this. There's a lot of people doing real science behind this, and it's becoming bigger every single year. I think next year we're going to have, probably 3 days worth of speakers, and have a couple of longer talks as well and thrown in there because we have some really interesting presentations and people working on research right now that'll be ready for next year, and just how it's all around the world. People are working on this problem.
Yeah,
and
that was cool.
not only that, but we're learning so much more about aquaponics now because they have the funding to do research on why things are doing what they're doing to plants, whereas the lettuce guys didn't have that kind of extra funding, because that's just there's not enough margins on lettuce to have that kind of extra budget for R&D, right? So it's allowing a lot more science for aquaponics as an agricultural production method in general, to have a much better chance of getting a lot of the research that really needs to be done so it can be taken more seriously as a production method.
I hope that happens too, because just hearing from a lot of the people that were doing cannabis production, seems like it's a bit tricky for them. As far as what to do when there's too much fish. That's one thing that I've noticed. And I had a suggestion, but I don't know if it would work.
If there's too many fish, you eat them. Right?
Right. You go fishing or you have
Problem
fish
solved.
fry on Friday.
Right. That's it.
But
Fish tacos, you name it.
So when we design all the systems that I do, we have the ability to turn the fish tanks off online or offline. So they're always plumb, that we can break off the fish tank. So the main reason is that I can run in an emergency. So say we have an ice storm and the power lines are down. It's going to be 2 weeks until this thing is going to be fixed, right? We can limp along and just keep the fish house, fully powered and aerated and circulating, and run carbon filters in an emergency mode, and then just finish the plants off and just try to flower them out with whatever light that we have at that time of year in the greenhouses, and then do our best to keep them warm with a couple of different methods. But you can kind of allow the greenhouses to get significantly colder because the plants can take a lot colder than the fish can with most of these facilities. So it's not ideal, but hey, it's okay if the water, as long as it stays above freezing and doesn't start blowing up plumbing lines. It's not a huge deal. So we always do that as far as giving ourselves redundancy, especially in these larger commercial systems where they have a lot of money invested in aquaculture systems and a large amount of money invested in fish. They don't want to lose that either. That's the reason why we do that.
so, okay, then the other idea was having, like we were talking about earlier, I wanted this huge fucking greenhouse. So what about the idea then of having a huge greenhouse and having an aquaponics pond right in the middle that you could go swimming in? Like I always wanted a pond to go swimming in the middle of my greenhouse so I could just go swimming any time of year and water my plants and go back swimming again.
They do have living swimming pools.
Yeah.
I used to work on those back in Philadelphia, but it's definitely something that's, not always the easiest thing to set up, and I've never tried to do it while also using it for aquaponics and producing enough nutrients for plant production.
Because why do you need too many fish or?
No, you wouldn't want that much sunlight hitting the open water surface. Like with the fish tanks, they're always indoors or they're under rafts or some other type of way to block the sunlight.
Yes. What if there was a wall and the tank was like on the north side of that wall? So the tank itself was constantly in the shade, never getting direct sunlight.
You could probably make it work.
What if it was underground, like not a tank,
That's
but
fine.
a whole?
Yeah, no,
And
the only issue is that the sunlight can't hit it. So you could just put a cover
okay.
over it, it'd be fine.
Oh, fun. And then would it keep the greenhouse cool during the summer and maybe keep the greenhouse warm during the winter?
Yeah, so it works like a thermal battery. In fact, let me
Yes.
see. I might have pictures of this.
So I'm scheming up my future right now.
Yeah, it's a really good way if you're in a really cold climate.
Well, actually, you know, Colorado used to snow a lot, and it's not really snowing anymore. It's supposed to snow tonight, sort of, probably not really. But it's not snowing at all anymore. It's not as cold as it used to be all the time. It's pretty crazy. Fumidor, are you in Oregon?
I am, yep.
Know where you're at, or is it only rain?
Rarely. It used to snow maybe every 2-3 years, but now it's really inconsistent. We'll have like ice storms in February, which is really unusual, but it hardly ever snows. It'll snow up in the mountains, you know, like Mount Hood and stuff. There's like skiing. It's all white now, so it's probably going to be skiing soon. In fact, probably skiing season's probably going to open. Mount St. Helens has snow on it, stuff like that. But yeah, like on the regular ground. And then when it does snow, oh my God, the whole city shuts down. You know what I mean? Like any of the cities, like it's just nuts. Like people will literally pull over on the freeway, like in the left lane, because like there's just so many crashes and they just don't know what they're doing. And they're just like, oh, we just give up.
You're driving too fast. Slow the fuck down.
No, it's crazy. It's crazy. And then I was just telling a friend of mine the other day that some of the worst crashes are with like the Subarus, the 4-wheel drives, because they're like, woo, we could drive 4-wheel drive 80 miles an hour, and they don't realize
they play around too much. People play They play too much. It's like, man, you guys really got to be careful. Right. Ooh, look at that. That's really cool. Greenhouse, is that a deck over a pond in the ground?
Yeah, so this is actually
that's cool.
This is a bus frame that we chopped up and then used that steel bus frame to basically frame out the platform, and then used recycled deck material on top of that we got for free off of Craigslist. And then we got a bunch of redwood from someone's deck that we also got for free off of Craigslist, which was score of the century. So the whole greenhouse is built in redwood for free. It was pretty amazing.
That's regenerative right there.
Yeah, so this was all mounted on the footers for concrete, not concrete, what do you call it? Scaffolding, like for buildings. So we could raise and lower that platform about 3 feet. You have to raise it at, one corner at a time and lift the platform, or get someone, somebody on each corner, but you could spin the things and raise the whole platform up so that you could raise the hatches on each of the walkways in the center between the grow beds there, which you see where the tree is sitting right here. These were all on hinges, so they would go up or down. So if we needed to access the plumbing or just access the fish directly below, we could just, work our way down. You can see this hatch is open right now in the picture.
That's really cool.
But this was from a crashed school bus, which is kind of crazy that we got that frame from the junkyard.
Did you get it for free?
What's that? No. Well, no, anyways, the guy I worked with, his father had some kind of deal with the junkyard, so we were just getting materials to build the place out. But we actually built a whole geothermal system underneath this greenhouse as well. In fact, I'll pull that up here. But we built a whole geothermal system underneath.
Warm?
Yeah, it helps a lot. If you're in any type of cold climate, it really does make a huge difference. I gotta find the slide for it. Hold on a second.
I was also thinking about making the greenhouse like a wall of peony, digging a little bit into the ground or lifting the ground up on the walls, just to also keep the greenhouse warmer during the winter time and cooler during the summertime.
Sure. Well, let me hit this. There we go. So, it's set up like this underground. So you have the high point and the opposite end pulls the hottest air, pulls it through the underground, and then puts it back up. And then we have sand immediately around them to grab the heat, and then gravel around that to hold the heat better underground. So that would heat the ground underneath the greenhouse and then allow for this warm air at nighttime. It would, pump out, 58 to 60 degree air at night because it would be heated up, heat that sand up during the day. And then you just put a little fan up here that runs off a little solar panel, and it, this will air condition your stuff in the summertime and heat it in the wintertime. It's a really, really cheap, great system. And then hold on. Oh,
Wait.
this is us installing it. So this is the when we put that in. And then we also put a glycol line in underground that didn't do anything, so we stopped using it. But we did test that idea. You need to put, if you're going to do glycol for heating the place in the floor, it needs to be right in that top layer to heat the actual floor of the greenhouse, like right at the surface where you're going to, touch every day, not underground, because heating it underground like that and trying to layer it in, it just didn't work well functionally. But yeah, I tried all different types of stuff. We built 2 of these for R&D to try and figure out what worked best.
That one in the top left corner where that person's standing, was it that shallow when you put the greenhouse on top, or you filled that up?
So this is the ground, and the greenhouse is about higher than he is tall ultimately.
Okay.
And the platform is on that. So
Yeah. Okay. That's cool.
and we had a deep hole here, and that we had our pumps and stuff down there, and it gave the fish a place to run to if they got scared or whatever.
Yeah,
We
I
just
would
had
want
them
something
all in
like
one
that.
giant pond. There was we had nothing but misfits from Craigslist. There was tilapia and Oscars and red-tailed catfish and pacus and yeah, it was just whatever people like didn't have a place for, and the pet stores were like, nope, it's too big. We had a 4,000 gallon pond that we could just toss them into, and if something ate them, and if they got along with the community, then they were fine. So it just kind of became this home of misfits and a place for fish, so they weren't just killed.
Yeah. Nobody else wanted them.
Yeah.
Or Craigslist misfits.
But we had a gas heater, so we had a solar heater panels. In fact, I can show you those too. So we had solar heater panels that heated it.
Did you make them yourself, the solar panels?
We got them off of, these were free off of Craigslist from someone's roof. Solar water heaters off that someone didn't want anymore. We plumbed it underground and insulated it, and then through a junction box. And then there's coils here you can see that go and heat the water. So that this runs on a pump and a sensor. So once this heats up hotter than the water is, it'll turn on and circulate the glycol in the line. And then if it freezes, it has glycol in it, so it won't burst the lines. And it works extremely well. It's cheap. Again, this is something that you can run off of a little 100-watt solar panel to run the whole system for all day. And then if it's super hot in the summertime and the air gets colder at night, what you can do is run this at the same thing, but run it at nighttime in the summer. And what it'll do is it'll wick the heat off and release it through the panels, and they'll act like radiators. So you can cool the water temperature at nighttime in the summer and help, draw some of the heat down so the fish and the water cools down, and you can, pull a few degrees off every night. If you have a little bit of a heat wave, it can really help. But yeah, and we also run these through the beds as well to maintain root temperatures and stuff like that. And we also have a backup line. So say this, it's super cloudy for a couple days, or whatever, there's just no sun for too long. We have a backup thing with a tankless water heater that's plumbed into the same line, so it'll run on that loop instead and still keep the whole system alive. And that runs on propane, and it runs it doesn't take very much.
Oh, excuse me.
And it's a really good way to do like off-grid climate control for greenhouses if you're trying to do off-grid temperature control.
That's really cool.
Yeah, we did a lot of work trying to develop some of that stuff. We had a big group of people that were preppers that we used to sell to regularly at the Aquaponic source, and we did a lot of R&D around some of these ideas for people that wanted to have that type of product. Plus, it overlaps with the cannabis industry. A lot of people want to have it for the same reasons.
So what about like the fishies that you wanted to choose? If you wanted to find some that are more friendly, like to swim with? Which one would you choose?
Probably do koi.
I was thinking the same thing after hearing so many people talk about the different types of fish. Are they tasty to eat? Like if you have too much koi and you got to go fishing?
I mean, you can eat them. They're kind of bony and oily. They're not like the best fish. You have to.
And Americans don't like carp. I don't know what it is. Like just carp in general. And like seriously, there's a bunch of European, like Japanese people, European, who's it, Polish people. Like in Christmas time, they have to actually have a carp for Christmas. There's a bunch of people in France. They'll have like delicate carp butter dishes, whatever. Like they love the shit out of carp. And here we're like, no man, it's a trash fish.
Well, no, what you
Carp's
do
fine.
is
Crap out
It's
of the
bony,
carp?
yeah, but a lot of
That's
fish are bony, especially like freshwater fish. A lot of them are bony.
if you catch them, what you want to do is keep them in like a Rubbermaid or something for like 3 or 4 days with an air stone and let them flush out, and that'll really make them taste a lot better. If you have the luxury of doing that, or even set up like a Rubbermaid toad or IBC and throw them in there for a week or whatever, and just don't feed them, or just give them some lettuce or something like, light, so that they're not, it gets that mud flavor out. And some of the stuff from the algae and stuff like that from the rivers and the lakes, depending on the quality of the water where they come from, it definitely improves the flavor. And then the other thing you can do too with them, if you want to try and make them taste better, is treat them kind of the way you would sharks or rays. So put them in like a super, once you've cut them up, put the meat in like a super saline solution, and then rinse it off the same way you would treat like a shark or ray meat. That you have to get rid of the urea. With the chlorides, it definitely helps a lot as well for getting rid of that kind of unpleasant flavor from the carp.
That's interesting. Right on.
I love cooking and I like fishing. So
I love baking.
bow fishing for carp is a lot of fun in the springtime. My cousins and I used to do that as kids. We had bow fishing reels and we'd go out in the canoe and shoot a big buffalo or a big carp, and it would tow us around for a couple minutes before we get it in. And because we're only so big with me and my cousin on there. So
Oh dang!
I remember I shot a huge one time at Washington's Crossing in Fort Washington, Pennsylvania.
You lived in a lot of places, huh?
That's where I grew up, is Philly. So.
Oh, okay. And then after that, you moved to a few different states and then lived all over the world for some brief periods of time?
Yep.
Which out of anywhere in the world is your favorite place to be?
Huh. Some of the different areas of Jamaica are really, really beautiful. But there's definitely some cool places in the Caribbean that are a little off the beaten path. Portland in Jamaica is beautiful, and you never really hear much of the tourists going there. There's not really much violence or anything there. You don't have like multiple big disputed groups there. It's all really controlled by one group, so there's not much violence there. So it's very kind of a peaceful place and a beautiful place in Jamaica that, again, isn't full of tourists that just got off the plane from Britain or America or Florida or some shit. And that's something I would recommend people. People often hear bad things, especially the resorts will tell you bad things too. If you go to a lot of these places, that it's not safe or whatever. Most of the time, that's totally bullshit. So for instance, in Jamaica, if any of these guys get caught doing anything untoward towards the tourists, not only will their own gang members come down on them hard, but the police come down on them like lightning bolts from like heaven. Like they do not tolerate it because they don't want to scare off the money coming to the island. Not only that, but like the community there, like if you try to take, someone tries to steal from you or something, and you point them out that they're a thief, the whole community there on the spot will basically lynch mob them. Like it's a different type of community. Like they protect the value of the tourism there, and they're not going to fuck around or put up with that shit. So a lot of these places get a bad rap, and they really aren't as dangerous as people claim that they are. Especially the people want you to stay in the walled-in resorts. They don't want you to see what's going on out there. And oftentimes there's amazing, beautiful places that are right outside the wall or not all that far away, and you can find safe ways to get there. So
that's awesome. I really want to go out with my husband soon and just go somewhere on vacation that's like not quite Hawaii. Hawaii's beautiful, but like there's got to be other places just similar to it that doesn't cost as much to go there and chill.
There's
So
lots of
I'm
beautiful
really looking
places,
forward to
but
checking out something. Somebody else had mentioned the Bahamas.
I'm really dying. I've had a couple people. I actually have two projects I need to eventually get out to at Mauritius, which is out past Madagascar, north of Madagascar, and a little bit west or east rather. So I'm hoping to get out there near Reunion. I want to catch a flight over Reunion as well because you know the legendary Zamal comes from there. So it'd be interesting to try and find some seeds while I'm over there. We'll see. We'll see what's up with this next Africa trip. But at some point next year, I will be over there. I was supposed to be there about 2 weeks ago, and then everything got put on pause because of the virus. So I can't do anything about it right now. And you know, that is what it is.
I always say divine timing happens when it's ready. Maybe even though things that I would like to go well for me right now is not working out so great, the timing's just not right. And I believe that when I pray that the universe hears my wishes, you know, and my goals and my dreams and brings all that to fruition in divine timing. When the timing is right, it'll happen. So one thing I always think about is anytime there's an opportunity, I just jump on it because you never know where that opportunity could lead you, right? So maybe your trip to Africa should be with divine timing so that everything that you want to work out great while you're out there is going to work out perfectly well for you.
Yeah.
What's the difference between fish poop and FAA? If you don't have fish poop, could you use FAA in its place, fish amino acid, the KNF kind, where you're fermenting fish, fresh fish?
They're kind of complete. Well, I guess in some ways, well, because they're both nitrogen sources, right?
Okay.
So I guess in that way they're similar, but everything else is different because it comes out basically like you're using hypermineralized compost tea, basically, except the compost is manure from the fish, right? And then all the microbes that you're adding to that mix from some of your KNF inputs and some of your other inputs that you might go and add to that from the soil food web. People have their different recipes, and whatever you find works great for you, as long as you're not using too much yucca or anything like that, or any yucca really, or saponins. That's really what'll get you into trouble.
What about Thermex? Shoot, I don't know what Thermex is. It's from Build a Soil.
Is it a wetting agent?
Yeah.
It's
And
basically
I would-
concentrated yucca.
Yeah.
Oh. So
Yeah.
no Thermex, no yucca.
Well, I don't
Saponins.
want to say that because if it could be aloe based, which would be okay because there are some wetting agents that are aloe based now, if memory serves me right. Maybe I'm misspeaking on that, but
I think Thermex is like 71% yucca, though. I think
oh, okay,
it
never
is
mind.
yucca.
Yep, never mind. Yeah, no, definitely, that's instant plant. So yucca extract. They used to take the Native Americans in the West Coast used to take yucca roots and they would squeeze them and press them and collect the juice and concentrate it, and then they would evaporate it down to make a concentrate and concentrate the saponins, and then they would have one guy go up the river about a mile and the rest of the village would wait in a shallower area all across the river and a row or two, and then they would put it into the river and it would kill off a whole section of the river while they were doing the salmon run, and they would collect all the salmon that would be poisoned from it and harvest them all on that day and dry them all and all that stuff, and then they would have their food for the winter, and they would do it one time during the run, so it's only for a small section of the small population of the whole thing. There wasn't that many villages doing it, but that's a traditional way that they used to collect salmon in that part of the world. Actually, where Fiume is, and down in Northern California.
So fish poop can be brewed with compost tea and other ferments, just not saponins like yucca, or especially no Thermex.
Yeah, and then no wetting agents. So
no wetting agents.
Yeah, that's what's going to get you into trouble in general.
Can labs be brewed with compost tea?
Yep. Well, you can't make it, but you could combine it, before application for sure. If you put
Oh,
labs into your tea and then brew it for a couple of, a day or two, it's just going to dominate the shit out of the brew. So
oh,
you could apply it right at application, but I wouldn't, do it other than that.
okay. How often should you water with fish poop?
Um, I would water every other watering in veg, and then I would water maybe the first 2 weeks in flower, and then I wouldn't use it anymore.
Really?
Yeah, well, you could
Okay.
use the water from the system, but I would dilute it down. I would use it maybe at a 50% dilution or something like that, because you don't want that nitrates and those higher nitrogens in flower. You do want the minerals, but you don't want the
That
nitrogen.
makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
You
Yep.
really want to cut back on the fish water, or just dilute it down with some other source of water late in the flower. Or this is the reason why we tend to run multiple fish tanks in veg, and then we'll cut it down to one fish tank in flower, and then maybe even just switch that fish tank off completely the last week or two, so that it just uses the nitrogen that's already in the system, and then once that's gone, it's gone, and it allows the plants to kind of finish up and taste good.
Oh, okay. So like if I wanted to start using, if I wanted to get into aquaponics where I am right now at the moment, what should I start off with? Like a fish tank? Should I get a fish tank and put some fishies in there and then clean the tank out? Or how,
Yeah, I mean,
how would like a
the
home
simplest-
person?
Yeah, and the most simplest way, if someone wants to do this at home, just when you do your freshwater water changes and you have all that dirty water, just water with that. It's filled with microbes that are going to be beneficial to the soil and the plant. It's going to help activate those secondary metabolite pathways on the plant, because it's microbes the plant's not used to, but not necessarily ones that are going to be harmful to the plant in any way. So it definitely can be a great way to further get more flavor out of your herbs, or better terpene expression out of your cannabis.
That's awesome. How do you make fish poop shelf stable?
You can cut it 50% with sugar, but
Sugar, that's what I was
generally,
thinking.
you just want to dehydrate it. Usually, is if you want to, kind of keep it around for use. A lot of people sell that stuff. In fact, there's multiple products. Fish shit. There's
Dude, I like fish shit. I got a sample of it and I used it and I thought that it was great.
there's another one called fish nor, and fish manure or fish nor, or something like that. So there's a bunch of different products. In fact, the fish shit guys have been on the show in the past.
Oh,
So, yeah, they're cool guys. But in fact, I've hung out with them. In fact, where was I? It was in Oklahoma. One of my first trips out to Oklahoma, I went and stopped at a place to get food, and they were in line in front of me, and we realized that they had been on my show, and we ended up having lunch together. It was kind of funny.
that's cool. See, man, that's why I love going to these conferences so much, because it really gives you an opportunity to really connect with people, even if you just got a quick moment to sit down and have some lunch.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, that's awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. Awesome. Fish shit and fish manure. Cool. I think I might like to get a fish tank then. Not a huge one. Does it have to be a huge one?
No.
Okay. Good. I'll
No,
start small.
You generally want to have at least a 40 or 50 gallon tank if you can get it. But just look on Craigslist and stuff like that, or on Facebook, Marketplace. You can always find some used ones. Just check and make sure they're not chipped, and make sure that the silicone isn't in really rough shape. If it is in rough shape, you can always take a razor blade and cut it off and reseal them pretty easily. Even if you're inexperienced, you can get a tube of it, and it's not intimidating at all, and you can get something for either free or a quarter of the price, rather than buying something new, and then use that. Especially if you're not sure if you want to do it yet, it can be a great way to cheaply get what you need. Or there's tons of plastic tubs now. Even just go to get some of the tough totes and stuff you can get at any box store these days. Those work just fine if you're just trying to do it on a real basic level, or even in a more urban setting and you don't want to waltz in with a giant glass fish tank. That can read just as good and a little less suspicious. if you have to be a little more stealthy about what you're doing.
I got some of those tubs recently. I have this crazy idea about having worm bins. I got one red tub and one green tub, and I poked several holes in them. And right now I still have 2 10-gallon pots growing with some cover crops, and they already got all the bugs and the worms and everything already in there. I was going to use one pot in each tub, and the green would be for like vegging plants. So when I go to feed that worm bin, it would be specifically plants or food that's great for vegging plants. And then the red tub will be for blooming for the flowers. So whatever I feed that worm bin would be specifically more like maybe fruits or something like that. Something like plants, like food that would be really great for plants that are in their flower mode. So I'm really looking forward to that neat little experience. I mean, I'm not sure if it's going to do much other than just satisfy my creativity and fun with it. But I was thinking it might be an interesting idea if specifically you want your veg plants to get certain nutrients out of the worm poop on there. Like maybe if you were going to put some of your fish poop in some of those compost piles, you'd probably want to put it in the veg one. But like one compost pile, like one for veg and one for bloom. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so for the soil, anything soil, I generally do the same kind of thing for both. I don't really have a different formulation. I just feel like that's just more work. And especially with the dual root zone stuff that I'm doing, we kind of just have set them one time and away we go. So we don't have a time where we're going to transplant them or anything like that. So it just doesn't work with the methodology that I prefer to work with. Now, if someone's really doing soil, yeah, maybe we'll have a different mix if we're uppotting them for that second pot. But even then, I generally still like to stick to the same thing, because then once we're done with our run, we can cut the plants off, put some nematodes in it, treat it with some good IMO, go compost it, and then reuse it, right? So once we buy 3 or 4 turnovers worth of soil, we don't really need to buy anymore, because we can just reuse what we have and then have it rest for a period of time while we're not using it. So this way we can constantly just reuse that soil, rather than one, it's a huge expense, and 2, like, it's much more ecologically responsible. And if you use good soil building methods, you don't need to be rebuying the stuff over and over. You get it one time and you're done. There's no reason why you shouldn't be doing it this way.
How often do you apply the IMO?
I generally do liquid IMO once a month if I'm going to do it in general for applications, but for aquaponic systems, we'll dose it when we're doing mineralization. So when we have the offline mineralization tanks with all the fish waste, we'll add liquid IMO to that, along with a little bit of labs to brew that all up, so that it actually has a much higher chance of mineralizing everything in there, because, excuse me, the different microbes in fish waste are wonderful. We've done a lot of documentation on that with aquaculture. But if I take the stuff from liquid IMO, a good IMO collection, it will increase the mineralization of that tremendously, because it's all types of different microbes that are now going to, in addition to what was already there, mineralize the fish waste in whole new ways and make things bioavailable that previously weren't being made bioavailable. So we take that, we mineralize that all up, then we shut that off for about an hour. All the solids settle to the bottom. Then we take all the clear water off the top, which is the heavy mineralized water, goes directly back into the system. That just came from the system. Then we add more fish waste to it from the filters, and we top it off with the rest of the way with aquaponic water. We brew that back up again, and then mineralize that. And then we do different lengths of time depending on veg or flower. In veg, we'll do maybe a 3-day brew. In flower, we'll do a 7 or 14-day brew. Because the longer you brew it, the less nitrogen there is. You get a denitrification in the system. So it just depends on what it is that I want as a result out of that brewing.
Oh, interesting. That was a lot. One last question. If you had aquaponic set up in that dual root zone, like how you've shown pictures before, like that last one you just showed where you got your soil on top and then your water for the fish underneath, would that raise the humidity level in the room? Would it cause bud rot or mold or PM?
The aquaponic system certainly will raise the humidity of the room, but it's good because it's easy to hold the right VPD, and then you can just set up a couple of dehumidifiers and then run the water, if depending on what they're made of, just run that water back into the system. So you're just capturing that moisture and putting it right back in, rather than having to, run water all the time. You're able to recapture quite a bit of it. And there's many different facilities doing aquaponics and hydroponics now that utilize that.
I heard you mention that on the last show when you were talking about specifically which dehumidifiers are safe to use where you're reusing the water.
Yeah, I don't remember which companies. I'd have to go.
Oh, not the company, but it was made out of some sort of metal.
Oh yeah, you want to avoid. Yeah, you want to ideally try to avoid the zinc ones because the zinc ones build up in the systems over time. So that's the biggest one you want to avoid if possible, as far as the condensers. A lot of them are aluminum, which is the best one.
Okay, so the aluminum ones are good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it doesn't corrode the same way,
And I'm using a like I have a water reservoir, like a 60-gallon water reservoir, and I was using a fish tank water heater to keep my water warm, especially like during the winter time, the water gets really cold. But lately it broke. It's like something I found off Amazon. It had really great reviews, so that's why I bought it. But now it's like way too freaking hot and it won't stay low. So I was wondering, I wonder if you went to go get it, what's the best, like what you would use to heat your water reservoir? Like the thing I got was a fish tank water heater. So imagine if you already have a fish tank, you would want something to keep the water warm. So what's the best thing to use?
I had to let my dogs in. I'm still waiting on the last one. I would look at the titanium aquarium ones are the best ones because if they dry up, it's not a big deal.
Oh, is that an issue? Well, is it an issue if they dry up if they're not turned on?
If they're not turned on, it's fine.
Oh.
The problem is that if it's on and the water level gets below that, or you're taking water out and forget that it's plugged in and it's glass, they explode. Or they'll melt whatever they just rubbed up against. Whereas with the titanium ones, a lot of them have a sensor in them that can detect if it's out of the water, shut them off. And they're like 20% more than the glass ones, and they're way, way better. And they're usually used for reef tanks and stuff like that, but it's just a much better for aquaponics and anything in hydroponics as well. And it'll just last forever as well. They're just a much better product.
Nice. Yeah, because now I gotta get a new temperature thing to keep my water warm.
Yep.
It's getting cold, especially tonight. That was all of my questions that I had for you. I really appreciate you answering them all. I don't know if you knew that you were going to get Q&A tonight on the show.
Fine. It's fun.
Thank you.
Also wanted to give a shout out to Jordan River. We had a fun time I did a recording on his show on Wednesday. That was a ton of fun.
What's his show?
He's the host of the Growcast.
Oh, yes. That was another thing that I wanted to listen to while I was at work. I really enjoy listening to these podcasts while I'm working because I got to do something with my brain.
Jordan's going to be coming out to visit here in January, and we're going to be scheming up some cool stuff for you guys. So definitely check that out. We're going to have some cool content together. We're going to go and tour some grows together and do some filming and some other cool stuff that I don't think he's announced yet. So I'm going to not spoil it. So
Okay.
But we're gonna have some fun and do some cool stuff for a couple of days. So definitely looking forward to that as well.
Nice. That sounds
Yeah.
like fun.
Oh yeah. And yeah, just looking forward to it. Also wanted to plug Josh's conference again, the
I'm
regenerative.
definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, just go to regenerativeseeds.com/conference-2022 if you're listening to this to an audio format. Yeah, Humboldt on January 28th and through the 30th, Michigan February 25th through 27th, Maine is going to be March 26th through 28th, and then Oklahoma on April 29th through May 1st.
Yep, that's the one I'm gonna go to then. I hope to see you guys there if you can make it.
Oh yeah.
Anyone who's listening, you got to get your tickets to that conference because it's really an amazing, magical place if you want to get more into growing regenerative cannabis or anything in general. That's like when I grow outside, I like it to be fed with the same nutrients I'd be feeding my food. And I love growing my own food. It's so delicious. So I want to do more of that. Growing my own food, growing medicine, sharing it all with the community would be really nice. So it would be nice to do that affordably, like what you were saying, even going on Craigslist and finding some things that people are giving away for free.
Yeah.
Maybe someone's giving away a dope ass greenhouse.
Sometimes they're like, we sold the property. You have 48 hours to come get this. Or it's getting dragged off by like a trash company.
Yeah.
Very close.
Or
Especially
it's
in
already
Oklahoma.
taken down and you have to pick up all the pieces. And I'm like, well, I don't even know how to put one together. So is there a YouTube video for that?
I remember we had a really wild night one year up at the Gilchrist spot, and they had like 130-mile-an-hour winds recorded in Boulder, the peak right above there. And we had one of the smaller frames that we had, like a decent size, hoop house, got picked up by the wind. It didn't rip the plastic, it lifted the whole thing.
Yep.
And then slammed it against the side of the tractor barn and then just crumpled it into like this tiny little fucking ball. And it was like just insane that the wind blew so hard that it didn't rip the plastic, it ripped the whole building off the ground. Like that was just insane to me.
Even where I'm at, we get really strong winds. And that's one thing that really worries me because I have a hoop house. Usually we just take the plastic covering off during too crazy. We did manage to tie it down, but I mean, you really got to hold it down with like really heavy boulders or rocks or something like that. I mean, the wind is extremely strong. And
in Colorado, you have to use the inflated plastic. It works much better, the dual layer, and you have the air pump.
I heard of that.
That inflates it. It works much better in Colorado. And they have ones that are honeycomb, and it's like corrugated, kind of like cardboard. And it inflates all of the different pockets, and it really works well because they act like little greenhouses. It makes this little heat bubble that kind of works much better in the winter time, and then the summertime you just kind of roll the sides up a little bit.
Yeah, to get some nice airflow underneath.
Yep, just make sure you have some thrip screening underneath, so you're still keeping the bugs out.
Yeah, that was one issue. But then the other nice thing about being outdoors was just all the other natural predator bugs that kind of came into that house too. It was a very cool place to hang out at all year long. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to doing it again. I just want to think a little bit more strategically this time because my hoop house is only so big and I can't grow huge ass monsters in there. I want to keep it a little bit more discreet next year. So instead of planting my seeds in January, I think I'm going to plant them in March just to keep them a little bit more under control. And I might be looking, I don't want to say that I'm not looking for sativa strains because I really do like those. I would like just maybe 6 plants out there and one with like all of them are completely different terpene profiles, different cannabinoid profiles. I got a lot of thinking to do. Are you guys growing outside? Do you grow outside during the summertime?
Oh yeah, Yeah, but in Oklahoma, you have to grow very specific cuts, or they're gonna fry. Because we get really, we'll get 105-degree, 107-degree days, and we'll get weeks of 90, 95. And then they can get really soupy, like crazy humid, and the plants will grow really fast in that. But if they're not cultivars, they're going to thrive in it. They'll get, not the best buds, or they'll mature strangely, or you'll have just more pest issues. So, African cuts do really well. Equatorial stuff does really well here because it's adapted to those more soupier climates. In the summertime, when the weather gets shitty, they do, kind of do a little bit better.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense.
The other thing too is, we'll start the crews up working on the fields and stuff at, right at dawn, or we'll start everybody at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We'll work in the nursery. We'll work on the indoor stuff, anything that's going to be, with the lights on in the middle of the night. And then as soon as that sun comes up, they're working in the field as soon as they can see enough to not step on plants, and then work until it's too hot to work, and then either finish up indoors, or hey, just that's the end of the day. And that's how you have to do it. Same way if you're in like any of the equatorial areas, because it's just too hot. You got to finish the day by 10:30, 11 o'clock, because you can't do shit after that. It's just too fucking hot. People just pass out left and right. There's no reason to work in that.
See, that's where that swimming pond comes in handy. You get up early, you work, you water your plants, you take care of your garden. When it gets too hot to work, make yourself a sandwich, you go swimming with your fishies.
Even if someone says, what about without the soup, you're just hot? Yeah. Even if you're in like the high desert, again, you're going to want strains that are more adapted to the heat. A lot of the more narrow leaf strains are going to do much better in that type of environment, because they're not going to, have that extra surface area to kind of fry. That's different. It doesn't matter if it's indica or sativa or what the chemovar profile is. Just sticking to those more narrow leafed ones are going to be much better. Whereas in a colder climate, the wider leaves are going to do a little better, because they're going to absorb more heat and more energy from that different angle of the sun at your higher latitudes.
Fumidor, do you go outside?
Not cannabis, not right now. Hopefully, maybe this next year. I had some plans this year, but they didn't pan out. But hopefully, maybe. Well, I mean, I grew one plant, but that didn't really count. But
That counts.
I guess it counts. Yeah, he's actually still technically alive. It was a dude. He was a volunteer, and he's actually I don't know how, but he's still alive. Actually, just barely, but still has leaf vigor and everything else. It's kind of crazy. He's not photosynthesizing. Leaves are all black. It's actually really pretty. But yeah, I'd love to grow outside. I was just telling a friend yesterday that honestly, the best weed is frankly grown outside, at least grown by really good growers outside. Like if you grow it really, really well, I think all things considered, the sun is the most magical light source. It just has everything the plants could possibly want, and then some. And there's just no beating it. But a lot of times you'll get pests and dust and whatever else, and a lot of times bad growers too. People don't really admit that, but there's a lot of bad growers that grow outdoors, or just mediocre, let's call it that way. Let's not say bad, but mediocre. When you nail it, oh my god, that outdoor is like nothing else.
Good.
It smells from a mile away, and yeah, straight up.
That's what I really like about the hoop house and the greenhouse, is it does cover it up a bit, especially when there's all those fires this summer and the summer before. Like having the plants in the hoop house versus just outdoor in the open air, mine weren't really dirty, And like I said, I got some bad pests. I did treat them as much foliar as I could gently, and added some beneficial bugs. I also was thinking about like planting certain plants that would attract the beneficial bugs that you want in your garden. But at the same time, a lot of them just kind of came on their own. Those bugs know. And that's another thing about terpenes. They're putting out that smell. One of these terpenes was specifically for finding bees. Like the bees smell it and they go straight towards it. And I thought that was really awesome.
Attracting pollinators, yeah, just in general. It's a cool idea.
Mm-hmm. Or any other food that you're growing outside is so freaking delicious. I made a lot of tomatoes this year and I gave a lot of them away. My tomato game's pretty strong.
That's awesome.
Made some really amazing tomatoes. Now I gotta buy them at the store, and it's like they're not that good.
Yeah, I know.
I
that
like my own.
It's the same thing with weed, you know, and the tomato scene is probably a lot more mature than, well, it is definitely more mature than the weed scene. So you can imagine the tomatoes you get at the grocery store are better than the weed you get at the the
Mhm.
weed store, basically. Yeah.
It's loved and it's cared for. It's got more freedom, like that cow in the field, and
I mean, actually, neither one. You know, like the tomatoes at the store are kind of terrible. You know, I guess that's the point. Like we're always talking about, like the tomatoes at the store. It's very, very rare to find good ones, and you usually have to pay kind of a fortune, and like at the special store.
Yes,
And even then,
exactly.
the Whole Foods and stuff. Like even then, the tomatoes aren't that good. So I always remember that when I go. Like, well, I don't usually go that often to a dispensary, but the reality is most of that weed is basically about as good as any of the tomatoes you'll find in a grocery store. You know what I mean? If you want something better, you got to grow it yourself, or you got to find it from someone who's doing like, an artisanal grow in California or something. We were talking about those outdoor growers, that kind of thing. Southern Oregon. That's the good weed, not the stuff usually at the dispensary. I hate to say it, but it is what it is.
Yeah. It's very rare to find a good dispensary that actually grows some cannabis that you enjoy. That you're like, hey, if I was to run out of cannabis, I'd go to Verde Naturals. And I have a friend that used to work there and says really nice things about that place and the way that they were growing. But if I couldn't grow it myself and I didn't know anybody personally that was also growing organically that I could buy it off of, and I had to go to a dispensary, that's just the place that I would personally choose.
Right on.
Steve, why were you laughing? Do you know about Verde Naturals?
I was just reading a comment in chat.
Oh.
Someone said I put shitty males at McDonald's drive-thrus, so bad indoor grows get contaminated with bad genetics. I just thought that was funny.
Oh, that's terrible.
I'm not telling anybody to do that, but it is funny.
I mean, allegedly, a funny
Well, I
place
gotta
to get
get
rid
going,
of
you
old
guys.
seeds you don't need is at the police station yard. So
Just sprinkle them on the lawn and then walk away.
I would never recommend anyone do that, but it would be
It
a
would be
hilarious
funny,
thing if
though.
it happened. Yeah.
Don't be caught on camera. I mean, if you could just
Wasn't
throw it
It's bird
like
seed.
Wasn't it in Portland where someone was going around and putting pot plants in giant potholes to make the city do
You might be
something
right.
about it?
Yeah,
Wasn't that?
yeah.
That's
Portland?
awesome.
Yeah.
There
I'm
was
getting
another
rid of
one
this
in
spot now, aren't you?
there was one like Russia or somewhere where some guy was doing full-on miniature scenes with basically like toy construction workers set in like this kind of crazy scenario, like the climbers. I don't even remember actually how they did it, but it was basically that, like the construction workers are falling down and climbing. It was like a whole miniature scene to kind of exaggerate how bad the potholes were. It was funny, I guess, anyway.
Was that on YouTube or something?
Like toy dinosaurs and stuff. Yeah. It was amazing. Yeah, right.
Oh,
There you go.
it had to get that tall. Like nobody ran it over.
That's
Oh,
excellent.
wait.
I
He
love
grew it in. Okay, I get it. He grew it himself and then came out one day and
That's excellent.
filled up those spots. That's hilarious. I gotta get going, you guys. It's
Right
super
on.
late and I gotta get up super early tomorrow morning.
Right on.
Thank you
Nice
so
to
much
see
for having me on the
Cheers.
show. I really appreciate it.
Cheers.
Just to
Nice
finally
see
see you in person and be able to chat,
Yeah.
it was really awesome meeting
Yeah.
face to face. And all that.
Thanks for coming on. Watch, tell everybody how to find you.
Yeah, and I'll see you at that regenerative conference.
Why don't you tell everybody how to find you?
Oh, me, yeah. I'm Greenz Goddess, Greenz with a Z, Goddess. I'm on Instagram. And I also run the website lunagardens.co. But that website is if you want to help educate someone, like maybe if you know a friend or a family member who might be able to use cannabis for their specific illness or disease, you would be able to find some research that I have done. And there's tons of papers on there that talk about what's good to use and how you should use it, whatnot. Might be interesting for people like who are a little bit nervous, like say someone who has Alzheimer's, you know what I mean? And my Instagram it's mainly about that and also just growing organically. I made some beds and found some bugs. I do some videos, anything that I learned how to do. I also like just sharing it with everybody else. So if I learn how to do something, I like turning it around and sharing that with everybody else as well. And that was my greenhouse. I had a lot of fun in it this past year. Wait. If you go back down, there's pictures. That's the forest that I was telling you about. And if you pull it down up, there are pictures of the oil on top of some mushrooms. Yes, that one, top right corner. And there's one more on top of that. This was a video I did for my res field during the summer. I was following a whole bunch of different things at the time. And even though that's a big 60-gallon reservoir, it's really not too many ingredients in there for how huge it is. I used to, when I would water it, I would go ahead and foliar or spray the leaves with the feed also, just to kind of cool them off a bit. But on one of those other pictures was some of the mushrooms that I had seen on my path when I was walking. Yeah, there's a good one.
That's Amanita panthera. That one's very poisonous.
We definitely didn't eat them, but they were super cool to take pictures with.
Yeah, that's not one that you want to eat.
Okay, good. The poisonous ones, would they also not? That's a cool one. I thought that was a cool picture right there.
It's a guild one. That's another panthera.
So those were everywhere when we were on our hiking path.
Yeah. I was just looking to see for other mushrooms too.
Those might be the only ones.
Okay.
I really want to get into mushrooms. Just right now at this moment, I don't necessarily have the time to get into it. That was some food that I grown this year. Hikes, just, you know, it's a bunch of random stuff. That was a letter to show how tall those plants got. Labs, when I made labs, I actually made labs and it didn't come out so well. And I got a few good pointers from some friends on Instagram. And so I did it again. And it was super successful the second time. So
What did you do differently?
Huh?
What did you do differently?
The combination of milk to rice water. Also, I thought I had to soak my rice water for 24 hours. And I didn't. You just got to put your rice in, stir it around for probably like about 3 or 5 minutes, and then rinse the water out. And what I had done was left the rice in there. Then I have maybe waited too long because that may have been during like a warm time. And so some people were telling me where to store it differently and that I don't have to leave the rice in for so long. So I've done a lot of K&F stuff, but I've honestly never taken Chris Trump's class. Just I've watched his videos on YouTube. That's how I learned how to do most of the stuff that I did. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him over at the conference. I know he's going to be there, but I really want to sign up for one of his classes as soon as I can afford to.
Well, thanks a lot for joining us tonight, and it was a lot of fun having you on.
Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on, Steve. Bye, you guys. Take care.
Take care. And that was awesome. You can find her again at Greenz Goddess, at Greenz Goddess on Instagram. And then also at, hold on a second, lunagarden.co. Hold on a sec. lunagardens.co. Yes. So definitely check that out. It's Fumidor. You can find it, Fumidor on the Flavors on YouTube or on fumidoro.com. He has a wonderful selection of genetic preservation kits over there. Some of them are quite awesome. And so definitely a great episode, and we'll be back again next week. I believe next week is our year in review. We're going to do a little more people in memorial because we lost quite a few good people this year. So we'll talk about that for a little bit, and then we're going to talk about our Christmas guide. We always like to do a guide for kind of like a couple of different categories and the top 10 products for a couple of different categories from the last year, just some interesting things that we found that we think you guys need to know about that you might want to get as a stocking stuffer or as a last minute thing. for somebody that for the holidays, regardless of if you celebrate Festivus or anything else, you have something to think about, to get for your important person or whomever. Yeah, it was fun. Also check out, again, big shout out to the Dude Grows crew and the Dude Grows show. They had an awesome barbecue after the Cowboy Cup. Big thank you to the Dude and Scotty for always putting on a really good time for people that come out and support them. And it was a wonderful time seeing everybody at the Cowboy Cup, and giving out some seeds, and helping people out, and smoking a lot of great cannabis with a lot of people from Oklahoma. So that was a lot of fun. Shout out to JR Token, hanging out with Jay Maestro. Jay Maestro is going to be coming on the show as a guest. He's finally able to lead the state of Florida, so that was fun to finally meet him after all these years. And then what else? Okie Grower and all the other awesome people. I'm trying to think who else I met out there. I apologize if I forget. And we were hanging out, but it was a lot of cannabis that day, and a long weekend just in general. So thanks everybody. And then also check out Jordan River. I'm sure that episode's eventually going to make it out to YouTube. I think it's part of his membership thing for a while, and then eventually to be released later. So definitely check that out. It was a really cool interview. We talked about a lot of cool stuff, a lot of interesting topics that I guess we don't normally talk about. So it was a really cool episode. And check out also the episode we just did earlier tonight with Joda Herb. We did a great episode over on kelp and seaweed extracts and seaweed and kelp meals. So that was a really good episode. Dropping a ton of science, and Nick over there dropping a ton of science. So that was a really, really great episode. So yeah. All right, I think that's it for now. We also have a ton of cool guests. I have all the episodes. We're getting more and more people queued up for the show. I've been putting those in queue now that I have a little better idea of how to plug into YouTube now on the back end. So anytime, as soon as I get somebody booked for a week, I've been putting those up. So we also recently got Mila, the Hash Queen. She's going to be coming on the show as a guest here in April or sorry, January or February. So that's going to be a super cool guest that is one of the only people that spent some time with Frenchie in Nepal and stuff like that. So that'll be really cool. And we just have a ton of great guests lined up for a while. So check it out. And yeah, I don't know. We have a bunch of great episodes coming up. We have every Wednesday a new release of a different edited episode from the conference. I've been working on I still have to do day 2 of putting the chapters in to make it a little easier for you guys to flip through the 12-hour version. But I will get that finished on day 2. We'll have all those, and then in audio format as well. We'll have those all out in the 1-hour versions as well. So check all that stuff out. I also have some new content once I finally have time. Suddenly kind of have some new projects that are taking a lot of time lately. Haven't had as much time to make all the content I've been wanting to make lately, but I have a bunch of stuff on deck for you guys. So that's going to be coming down the pipeline. And yeah, have a good holiday. I hope everybody's staying safe. And we'll catch you guys again next week. Be sure to check out Fumidor's show on Saturday. It's always a good time. And we'll see you guys next time. You can find the show on SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, all the things, and on live on